Well, I'm busy working on another project out here. See these stone steps? Well, he's been here about 18, 19 years now, and they just, just not happy with them. Haven't been happy with them for years, so I'm busy replacing them. This is what have replaced the first set with. You can see Poppy is modeling for me up there at the top step. She loves it up there. And this is not done, but it's to the point where it's functional, so I'm ready to move on to the next one. The process here is there's a lot of labor involved. What I actually have to do is I break up these stones and haul it away. I have some place where I stuff it around the building. I'm using it to build up the apron around the building. And once I've got all that stone cleared out of there, this wall right here, I'm going to pull some of this back because once again, it has sunk a little bit in here. So I'm going to deconstruct this enough so that I can kind of reset the foundation of it and use it as this in line for this bottom step, and then I'll start to build up from there. So I'm going to get some time lapse of this, and I'll try to explain it as I'm going. We'll see how it works out. You may be wondering how one little old man can get these big blocks out of here without bringing in some heavy equipment. And I have figured out a way to do it, so I'll illustrate it. Let's just say it takes a little bit of labor, but I have plenty of time. Lift this rock up a little bit, get another stone underneath it so that there's some space. Cover it with a towel, whack on it with a sledgehammer till it breaks up, and then start hauling the bits and pieces away. And then repeat. So, it's like I said, a lot of work. This is hard to see, I know, with the shadows and the sun coming in the way it is, but I'm down to this last stone. And the problem here is that this stone is right up against the two walls on the side of it. Now, this one over here, I already started kind of working on it, but I've been banging away at this with a chisel and a hammer, trying to get some room here. I'm just doing this caveman mode, working away at this. And I think I'll probably get it enough where I can lift this rock up, and I need to get it up off the concrete pool deck, because I don't want to be banging on the rock real hard with a sledgehammer while it's sitting on that concrete, because I don't want to risk breaking the concrete underneath. I'm trying to lift the stone up, get a stone underneath it that's back on the dirt underneath the stone, so when I'm hammering away on it, there's no force going into the concrete. So that's where I'm at. Okay, I spent a little more time banging away at this with the chisel. I think I got this freed up back here now. I'll have enough room to lift it up. So let's look at this other side. Banged away at this too, and I got a good inch of clearance down there now. So I'm gonna try and lift this rock up. Okay, here we go. So here's my supervisor up here, keeping an eye on everything. Let's see if we can lift this up. Get a stone jammed under there. Still sitting on the concrete. There's actually some pavers under here. Trying to stay off that concrete. But we got plenty of room now. So it's worth pointing out that the whole purpose of the towel is that once you start breaking up that stone, little shards aren't flying all over the place and bouncing off of windows or Lord knows what else. Okay, so I'm going to take a moment here in the project trying to explain to you basically what I'm trying to accomplish. Last time I think I showed you anything, I had all those old steps removed. And what I am doing now is I have been doing a lot of head scratching, trying to figure out how I'm going to make this work. One of the issues I'm dealing with is I can't buy this same block new anymore. Manufacturer doesn't make it. When this original paver and wall work was done, it was about 18 years ago. So what I have been able to do is find some of this material that was ripped out of different places. So it's kind of a mixed bag as to what I found. And, you know, I just trying to make everything work. You know, I was successful at getting, you know, a set of steps over there that I'm happy with. And my goal is to, you know, try and make this work as best I can with what I have. So, with that in mind, one of the things that I'm trying to fix is this wall had settled over in this area. So I'm right in the process of having fixed that. So I had to remove some of it. It's laid out here in the order I tore it apart. I also decided I'm gonna, you know, there was a section here that was higher. So I've decided to simply keep the whole wall at this height. Then I'm going to make a turn and go up along the side of the steps. My steps are about 43 inches, and that 43 inches brings me out to a point where I need to extend this wall that was here by 10 inches before I make this turn. So, you know, another complicating factor is that many of these stones are set up to be used in a specific location. So as an example, this stone right here, this side can be exposed, this side cannot, right? So this is like a hidden. This is hidden, this is hidden, this is hidden. So there's only one side here that can be exposed. Other stones, like this one, have multiple surfaces exposed. So, you know, this long side can be exposed, this side can be exposed. Here on this block, same thing, right? Got one I can expose here and here. So, you know, again, it's a variety of those. And, you know, I'm ultimately going to tie this wall or extend this wall in this direction. And you can see I have stones on the end here that, you know, are also that way. So I'm going to have to take some of these stones, use them on this side, some of these stones, use them on this side in order to try and make it look as decent as I can. All right. So the other thing I'm doing is trying to get this back to level. I'm okay with where I'm at with this bottom stone right here. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm trying to get a level set, a block across here that is both the extension of this wall. You know, I'm going to make a left-hand turn here, and I'm going to get the base of my first step in here as well. So I'm using 2A modified stone and working it to get it level. I'm not there yet, and at the correct height. And then I'll start, you know, one at a time, just place some blocks and checking level and so forth as I'm going. So it's a rather tedious process. I also, by shortening this wall, I freed up some additional block, which are laying over here. I resurrected other block that were used kind of as a foundation. They're really dirty. I'm sitting over there. I'm going to get my hose out and try and clean those up a little bit. But, you know, they're going to be usable as well. So I'm over in the area. All right, I'm over in the area where I have my different block that I acquired. So One of the things I learned is some of this block, you're looking at the front, the back. So, you know, this distance is different than on these right here. Okay, so I have some blocks, let's call this 10 inches, and let's call these 8 inches. So these will work with the walls. These I'm using for the steps, to build up my steps. So I've got that going on, right? These are the pavers I'm using. I had to buy those new. And these are the caps I'm using. I still could get caps that match. So I bought what I needed new to finish. Now over here, I have some other block I found that I bought from a gentleman. It's the correct style, but the color's a little different. These are actually more gray than that material. But, you know, there's places where block is hidden and I can use this. So I'm often using this as the first level of my steps to help build it up. But generally they're not, you know, that visible, so I can get away with that. So I have enough of that, I think, up to build up the first row of each of my steps. So there you go. That kind of shows you what I'm dealing with, trying to put this together. So I like using a much finer material to put, let's say, the last ½ inch on the base of what I'm doing, so I can really pack it and level it easily. But I don't want to use sand because it's just too fine and it washes away too easily. So now you can buy this, you know, finer material if you want, either from a quarry, or I think they sell it for $5, $6 a bag at the big box home improvement store. But for as much as I'm using, that would cost hundreds of dollars. So I just picked up myself walking around the flea market, just picked up myself what I call, you know, I call it chicken wire. It's just a heavy mesh, about a ½ inch mesh. Could have went finer if I could have found that, but I just put it on a 2x4 frame. And then I just run material through it. Just another benefit of using that two-way modified stone. It's a little trick I picked up from my dad many moons ago from that wall that I'm going to be able to reuse. But what I'm going to do is clean it up a little bit. You see there's a lot of mud packed on some of this stuff. Sometimes there's some, you know, little excess glue. So I try and scrape as much of that off as I can and just clean them up, because, you know, you use adhesive as one of the, you know, ways to connect these blocks together. So I just want to make sure that adhesive has something to really grab onto. Okay, here we are. Got these cleaned up, at least best I can, so I'll leave them here and dry a little bit. All right. Okay, I'm ready to start trying to get this first row in position. In my opinion, this is the hardest part, to get to the point where you're happy with this. So I'm gonna do a time lapse on this so you can get a sense of kind of what I'm going through. You're gonna see it's rather tedious and painstaking. And I don't know how much of this I'll actually film, but I'll do some of it. Well, I will say that went a lot better than I expected. I guess I'm getting better at preparing the base and getting it nice and level. So right about there, where you see my finger shadow pointing, is where the step will begin. So it's 43 inches going across there. And you can see that block is just a little wider, right, front back. All right, so now I gotta figure out when I'm gonna start making my transition this way. One more of many things to point out is I'm going for about a 7.5 inch step height, and I'm expecting to use 6 steps. That's what I'm shooting for. I've got about a 42 inch rise that I've got to make here. Well, I had to redo this base row. First thing was, I didn't have the correct side up. See the width of that slot? I wanted to match the way the wall works, and that's because of pins that go in there. And the other thing I did is I changed my mind. I wanted to go 44 inch step, and I made that change. There was one other thing I did, but I don't remember what it was. But now, anyways, I put the second row on where my step's gonna go. And now see this, that thing is not level across the 2 blocks underneath it. So I need to fix that before I glue it down. What that really means is this one stone is too high. This one stone right here underneath is too high. So I'm gonna have to pull it apart, fix that, and get those all to, you know, be basically level, not flopping before I glue them down. All right, my steps are 44. These caps I'm using actually have angled ends. So, I mean, generally that works out just fine, but there's, you know, on occasion you need to straighten them out. So fortunately, when I set them up here on the workbench to get the 44 inches I want is, you know, pretty much right at the end of the short side here. So I've got this wet saw I picked up off of Facebook Marketplace. It's a pretty nice saw, heavy duty, came with a stand, and it works perfectly fine. But these blocks are pretty heavy. So when you put them on that table, you can see the strain. But, you know, we cut through it, so I'll do a little time lapse here so you can just see it cutting. Obviously, it's a lot slower than what you're going to see it. Got a little lazy recording video here, but you can see we're at the point where I have the first set of treads in place on the first step, and the wall next to it is matching. It's kind of an important threshold. Step complete, then I'd start backfilling behind that step with stone, you know, compacting as you're going and establishing a base for either the wall to continue or the next step to start to be constructed. Well, it's many days later, I think, since I've recorded any progress on this. So this is not a how-to, by the way, because I don't know how to. It's hard for me to explain how to. Let's face it, I'm just making this up as I go, doing the best I can with what I have to work with. But I think in general, it's gonna work out. So, you know, I've got all my steps in place where I want them. My sidewalls are, you know, heading in the right direction as far as the layout goes. I have a problem in that I may not have quite enough material to finish. I know I don't have enough capstones to do what I want to do. So some of these are not actually the stones that I want to have in place, but I can get a functional walk without all that being done. I'm to the point now where I'm focusing on pavers. So I got this last step in position yesterday. I'm going to work on this now, getting these pavers in. Got a lot of work to do with leveling and so forth. And then there's going to be pavers heading up in this direction as well. So this is where I'm going to be working on the next day or two till I've got that looking decent. But I think we're getting there. Shouldn't be too long now. When I start digging in the stones, Poppy can't help but want to get involved. Well, I'm going to show you, I'll give you a few tips of what I focus on when I'm doing this. With these steps, I'm really after being dead nuts level you know, left to right. You can see the bubble. I am pretty much dead nuts level there. If there's going to be a slope in this direction, I'd rather it sloping back a hair, and that's exactly where I'm at with this right now. And the other thing is height, right? So basically the height between here and my previous step, I'm generally shooting for 7 inches on this particular set of steps I'm putting in, and I think I pretty much nailed that just about every time. I guess she decided it's time for a break, so I'll have to get her some coffee or something. Okay, even though I said it wasn't a how-to video, I'll give you a couple tips what I'm doing here. So I've got my stone base in place here for this set of pavers that are going to go in. I have it leveled the way I want it. I check level in this direction, I check it, you know, in both directions, and you know, it's basically, you know, right where I want it to be. Now what I've allowed for is a little bit of room that I can use a smaller aggregate on top of this to really kind of, you know, tune it in and get those pavers laying nicely. So I start using this. I like it when it's dry as possible, but you know, I start spreading that in there as I'm starting to work the pavers in. It gives me some little bit of margin of error. You know, if you were to read the instructions on this, say it would be telling you to use sand. My experience is sand is fine, but it tends to wash away over time, and then your pavers are sinking. I find this aggregate is probably going to hold up better and not wash away as bad. We'll see what happens. Okay, so I've test fit my first row. I'm happy with how they line up level wise. I intentionally set my dimensions up so I can use 7 across. And now what I'm going to do is take every other one and take them in and cut them in half this way so we can get an alternating pattern. The other thing I've done is this is intentionally set up that this will be exactly 4 pavers in this direction, so I will have no lost material here. You know, I just did that to make it easier, minimize the cutting I had to do. This has been an indispensable tool in this project. One of these kind of garden carts. This one's a 300-pound capacity. I'm sure I overload it all the time, but as you can imagine, this project, there has been a lot of material moving from one place to another. I probably spend half my time moving material, so this has been great. It's taken a lot of abuse, but it's holding up. Going here, I'm just trying to get these things lining up along the surface nicely, you know, heading in a consistent direction. And I haven't had to use much of that little aggregate at all to level things out and make much in the way of correction. So I think that's good, because the base is just gonna be more solid, and I'm not gonna have to worry about it shifting much. Okay, here we go. So I got those laid in there. The nice thing about this is, you know, you just take your time. Walk around on it, you know, see how it feels, see how those transitions feel. You know, see if you feel any of those pavers moving under your feet. You know, I mean, it's not a big deal if they're moving a little bit. But what you can do if you find something is just pick it up and work underneath that one. Right? You can make adjustments to your heart's delight on this. Now, what I will do eventually is I will use that sand that you brush into all the cracks, and that actually has some glue in it. When it gets wet, it actually creates kind of a bond, and it really tightens it up. But I'm not going to do that yet. That might be a spring project. And I'm going to move my attention up to here now, because this is a little more complicated. I'm going to run angles here and make that connection up there with that old pavers somehow. Not exactly sure what it's all going to look like, but we'll figure it out as we go. Okay, give you a little update here. Preparing this area for paving, or using my pavers. You see, what I've done is, I don't know if you can see that on the video, but I have sight lines set up to show me the surface level of where my pavers should top out. Pavers are 2 inches. So I want my gravel to be less than 2 inches once it's all compacted. and you know, close to 2 but less than 2. I can make up the difference with that smaller material. Then up here where I'm going to merge into the old pavers, I pulled up the old edging material and excavated that a little bit, and you know, just to prepare. So I'm going to butt up against those when I finish. Going to be some interesting cutting. And what's other I want to point out is, you notice how, you know, these were set in that finer grit material, and that held up really well. I mean, this is probably 18 years old, so no complaints there. Okay, I'm back. I made the turn, so to speak. I had to figure out how I was going to make this turn to go up here, and I figured this is what I decided to do. You can do your own, make your own decision. Well, this is what I came up with. So I'll have to do more cutting when I get up here, but from here I should be able to just get right up close to that and then take it from there. Here it is. I finished it. Been several days since the last video. I did get the necessary caps I needed to finish this job. So, pretty happy with it. I still have to put the sand in the cracks and all that stuff, but I'm gonna wait till spring before I do that, because I'll power wash everything. You always have to put new sand in when you do that. Once I power wash, I'll bet you those old pavers match the new pavers. So just some raw statistics here. I figure I used about 4 tons worth of paving and stone material, meaning this color of block and pavers. I figure I probably removed the equivalent amount of stone from the old steps and hauled it, I built up an apron all the way around my building, and then I laid 2A modified on top of that. So I figure I moved maybe 4 tons of that busted up stone from the old steps over there. And then I had a total of 21 tons of 2A modified, which frankly was too much, but I did get rid of it. And that's, you know, around the building. And I used roughly, I'm gonna guess maybe no more than 4 tons of that stone around in building up the steps. So there was a lot of labor involved. So I was doing that all with wheelbarrows and stuff. So here's just a view of that apron that I created. So underneath this, you know, if you look down here, you'll see this. That stone is underneath it. This 2A modified, this packs down nicely, so there's going to be some more settling here over time. But on the back of the building, this is the only material I have left that I had grabbed from old jobs. So there you go. So I've received some nice compliments on it. I'm happy I did it. It was a lot of work. I think it was a great improvement over what we started with, and I have a great sense of accomplishment for having made it through it. By the way, all that shooting in the background, it's not because that we live in a war zone. It's because it's a police shooting range down there, and on some days of the week there is shooting. All right, thank you. See you later.